Hello, everyone. I'm Shariel McHenry, PLC President of Connor State College. And here I'm with Mayor and Coleman of Muskogee. I'm gonna give him a chance to introduce himself.
Let me say hello to everyone today, and I'm proud to be here as we celebrate Black History Month. My name is Marlon Coleman. I am the mayor of the city of Muskogee. I've been mayor now for just a few months. In fact, it's almost time to run for re-election, but I'm just so happy to be here. I'm also the pastor of the Temple of Hope Church here in Muskogee, Oklahoma.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming in and answering these questions for me. As a way to celebrate Black History Month, we just wanted to get out and educate others and bring a significance to the month and Black history and all.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. All right, we're going to jump right into it with my first question. What's something that makes you proud of your heritage?
I think one of the things that makes me most proud of my heritage is my upbringing. I was basically raised by my grandparents. I went straight from Charity Hospital, which it was named at the time, to my grandparents' home with my mother, and we stayed there until I was in the fourth grade. And so my grandparents had a strong influence on me, particularly my grandfather, who was a strong African American man. He worked for everything that he had, even when he was in bad health. And one of the things that he instilled in us was that we should have a work ethic that defines us above our color or above our culture, that people will respect you if you're a hard worker. And at the same time, that we should embrace who we are as a people and never run from that fact and combine that with hard work and a solid work ethic so that we would be respected as an African American people.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Next question. Do you think we have reached equal rights now today?
I think that as a society, even globally speaking, we have a long way to go in terms of reaching perfect equality. And when I say perfect equality, I mean from the standpoint that all people, regardless of the color of their skin, have the same opportunities and the same access to resources that can make them successful. We know that over hundreds of years, there have been disparities, particularly towards people of color. And so we have an obligation, people who are in situations like I am, in leadership, to be certain that we speak truth to power in a way that allows other people to gain equality, to have the same opportunities that everyone else has so that they can be successful. And that means women's equality, that means equality for people of color, that means equality for those who are economically disenfranchised. And so we have some work to do. Certainly, we are much better off than we were hundreds of years ago. And there's still work to do. And we want to embrace others in that cause. This is not just an African American cause. This is an American cause that all people will have access to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Absolutely. Who was your favorite activist and who do you think was the most influential?
My favorite activist to this day was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. One, we share a common bond in the fact that he was a pastor and I pastor now. And I think that King's influence and the way that he gathered influence is something that all of us can learn from and live by today because he was very effective in challenging others to examine their moral belief system and understand that the God they served, regardless of their religion, was not a God of hatred, was not a God of divisiveness. And that message, that biblical spiritual message, was very effective in bringing people together of all religious backgrounds, all denominations for a common goal. And that common goal was that people will be treated fairly because of who they are as individuals and not treated unfairly because of the color of their skin. And that is a message that I think those who lead, those who believe in the civil rights cause, those who believe in fair treatment for all people, regardless of the color of their skin, those are lessons that we can learn from today. And so, from an equality standpoint, we have to evolve as people, regardless of color, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of your demographics. We have a long way to go to get to the point where all lives matter, all people are treated the same, all people are treated equally, and we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Until we are there, you're going to always see individual movements based on culture. When we need to be moving towards a movement where we're all treated fairly, respecting each other's culture, but treated fairly regardless of our cultures.
Absolutely. Why is it important to celebrate not only Black History Month, but Black history?
I think we have to celebrate it and recognize it because many of us face the danger of forgetting our history altogether. We know that across several states, there are educational movements that don't want to teach any type of cultural history, that want to teach a message that basically says we've already attained equality. We're already all the same, and that's not the truth. America is not a melting pot. America is a salad bowl with different items and ingredients and elements there. And it's so important that people understand where they came from. People, if they don't understand where they came from and the struggles that they had to overcome, they will become so comfortable that they will not know they're enslaved economically. They will not know that they're enslaved by zip code. And so it's so important for African Americans to know our history from a growth perspective. We want to grow from our history. We don't want to live there. We want to grow from that, but there's no growth if there's no base, and the base is where we came from. And it's important that we really understand that and pass that down from generation to generation.
Absolutely. Do you believe you were presented with more obstacles through the process of obtaining your current position because of the color of your skin?
I think that many of the obstacles that I face, some of them are systemic. Some people, when they see you, they see color in the wrong way. Of course, I always believe that regardless of who we are, where we're from, when we see color, we make a determination about what we do with what we see. And so there will be some people that are judgmental and stereotypical because of the color of our skins. But I think one of the greatest impediments we face as an African American culture is that when we see one another, we realize that we're all in this together and that we have to make strides to be certain that we don't cannibalize one another. We don't tear down one another. All of us can't be president. All of us can't be mayor. All of us can't be the CEO. But the ones who are, those people of color who have survived the obstacles, who have overcome the stereotypes and the uh, inequality impediments that have been placed before us, it's all of our obligation and responsibility to be certain that those people are successful. And that's what we have to really get to the point where we overcome. Certainly, any person of color or otherwise is subject to being judged because of their race. But we have a responsibility to be certain that we support one another in a way that even when uh, those who will judge us because of race, because of color, because of background, have a support system that helps them to be successful.
Definitely. Support brings you a long way. Without support, I
Yeah.
feel like you just feel lost and like you can't do it. So
And,
having
and, I,
a
and I think that's so important for us to understand as a people that there are many uh, generations behind us
mhm,
who don't feel like they can be successful, who have face insurmountable racial tensions. And we have a responsibility to be certain that, one, within our own culture, we're not racist towards one another or judge one another. And then we have a responsibility to be certain that other younger generations, one, understand that racism is real, that we do not live in a world where racism does not exist. But at the same time, we have to be a support network to help other people of color understand that when racism happens, not only are we there as a people, but there are still people who are not of color who have the same king mindset that says we need to help, we need to be there, we need to support one another. I'll give you an example. When we had the Black Lives Matter protests here in Muskogee,
mhm,
many of them were organized by people who were not of color. So many Caucasian, many white organizers helped to lead those movements because, from an empathetic standpoint, they recognize that people are mistreated because of the color of their skin, and they cannot overcome those immoral deficits on their own, that they need support, that they need help. One Black Lives Matter movement here in the city of Muskogee was attended by maybe 98% white Americans. I mean, and they were determined that you're not in this fight alone. At the same time, we then have an obligation as a people of color to be certain that no person is discriminated uh, because of the color of their skin, whether they're black, white, or indifferent.
Absolutely. How have you endured through the adversity before obtaining your position and after you were hired?
I'm not new to being treated differently because of the color of my skin. I was raised in the South. We
Hmm.
saw it all the time. We saw it all the time where you would hear little things, dog whistle politics, certain uh, uh, racial buzzwords. And going back to my grandfather, who just instilled in us, it doesn't matter what people call you, outwork them, outperform the stereotype, outwork the negative perception that they're trying to present towards you. There was some of it I've seen overtly during my time in office, but I am fortunate and so blessed that we are such a community of faith,
Hmm.
that there are people outside of my color, outside of my culture, who are determined to help me to be successful. And so while we know it's there, I think that we all have to remember that we have to be networked and embedded with people in a way that they believe in what you believe in, they want to support you, and they want to help you to overcome. Because the song is correct, we shall overcome. And when it says we, Dr. King was right. An injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. And at the same time, those injustices cannot be overcome just by the people who are being mistreated. They have to be overcome by others outside of our culture, outside of our demographic, who are determined to be certain that where those racial barriers exist, that those in leadership can overcome them and be successful.
Absolutely. What do you believe the number one issue that African Americans are facing or suffering from today?
I think the number one issue that we face are economic disparities. We have unfortunately seen a generation of African Americans who cannot get out of financial traps. And when I say financial traps, the trap of payday loans, the trap of high interest loans, the trap of not knowing how to manage money. And I think uh, the greatest issue that we have, economic disparities, including job advancement, job placement, wages, and then how to manage that. So even if we were in a perfect world where wages were all paid the same, we need to be certain that in the African American communities and cultures that we know how to manage finance, that we understand how financial markets work. We understand how home loans work. We have to understand that uh, car loans. It breaks my heart when I'm talking to some of my friends and they're telling me what they're paying for the same vehicle I may have, and their interest is 11 or 12%, when they should know or have some wherewithal how to negotiate those agreements and contracts that if the standard rate for used automobile, for example, is 5%, they should be at 5% and not at 11. And as long as we're in that type of financial trap, we can't do other things with our resources. So when a people of color is disadvantaged economically, they can't plan for retirement. They can't plan for living beyond work. They can't plan for living beyond good health. And so I think we have to overcome those economic disparities in order to be successful as a people, or we won't be successful at all.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. Um, one thing that my mom taught me is how to work finances, and I'm so grateful for that.
I mean,
Uh,
just basic things, a savings account, uh,
Absolutely.
making certain that we know how to, if we don't know how to do it individually, we surround ourselves with people who know and understand how stock markets work, how bond programs work. Those are all ways that we can overcome this great economic disparity, because it is a glass ceiling of sorts. It is a prison of sorts where if a people can't advance economically and plan for their future, their children's future, an inheritance for grandchildren, if we can't do those things, we are slaves of a different sort. You don't need chains to be in bondage. If you're bound economically and have no economic freedom and are always in bad debt, you'll never overcome any disparity associated with being a person of color.
Definitely. My next question is, or this is my last question. What are some ways we can show our gratitude to our ancestors for fighting for our freedom?
I think we have to show that gratitude by being certain that their fight was not in vain.
Mhm.
They bound together, black, white, other, during King's movement, to be certain that we were not judged in error because of the color of our skin. We cannot fulfill uh, or show gratitude towards our ancestors and those who fought before us if we don't come together and love one another. We have to love each other as a people before anybody else will, and we can show our gratitude towards the movement. We can show our gratitude towards those who fought for what we are able to do by loving one another, and then being certain that when we get to a place of leadership where we've never held before, that we do everything we can to be certain that we mentor and shadow other people of color so that they know what it takes to get there. I tell people all the time, yes, I'm the first African American male of Muskogee, but there's a lot of dynamic behind the scenes that went into me being able to do what I'm doing. I was elected at the height of George Floyd in a community that's majority white, and that's because one, I was not afraid to embrace who I am as a person of color. And then two, I would never use my color as a weapon to demonize people that didn't look like me. And we have to understand as a people that those are all critical elements that we need in order to be successful, in order to honor the legacy that was left before us. Those people in our culture did not die for our right to vote so that when an election was held, we wouldn't vote. I mean,
Mhm.
we have to vote. We have to encourage others to vote. We have to register people to vote. We have to be certain that we present information to them that we have access to on how to overcome, how to be solvent, how to survive in a world where there are still people who will be racist towards you because of the hue of your skin or your complexion. And so the legacies that we can honor are best honored when we honor ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything you wanted to add, any advice for younger people coming up or
What
anything?
what I would encourage any young person, especially a person of color, avoid the temptation to be perfect. We live in a world where we know we're going to be judged, and because of that, some people try to be so perfect that they're too careful to take risks and too careful to make decisions from a sound mind. So I would encourage any young person, be true to yourself, know who you are, know what your goals and objectives are in life, and be realistic about where you are in the world, and know that uh, even in a world where we have a democracy,
Mhm.
there are going to be barriers, visible or invisible, to people of color, but that we have to work together in order to overcome them and understand that people outside of our culture are not all our enemy. There are some extremely good people to me here in the city of Muskogee who don't look like me. There are extremely good people to me and the people of Muskogee who do not identify from the same cultural background that I do. And we have to embrace all of that, understanding that being true to ourselves is also being respectful to others.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. Well, I want to say thank you again for meeting with me today and helping Connor State celebrate Black History Month in a new way. I really appreciate you answering these questions truthfully and absolutely great. I love all your answers and your opinions on the different topics.
Well, thank you for having me. And if I can do anything else, please let me know.
Will do. Thank you so much.